Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Linnea and Akela is inside. You can actually probably see her paws right there. She likes to stand on my counter. Well, the van is done and I'm going to give you guys a tour. Before I invite you guys in, I have a piece of advice for any person that is looking into van life, and that advice is do at least a part of your build. If you have followed along with this journey, you have seen me do every piece of this build by myself with no prior experience. This was one of the most transformative experiences of my life. And I promise you, if you do all of the build, part of the build, one little project of the build, whatever it may be, the gratitude and accomplishment, like attachment, I guess, to your space in your house won't even compare. With that being said, I would like to show you my house that I built with my own two hands. Come on in. Before I bring you in here, just know that I did clean for you. But I wanted to keep everything else pretty much just how we live, so you can see how things are normally set up. I did vacuum, and I did make my bed, which usually doesn't happen. I think it makes sense to start in the doorway. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the van. I recently built these little extra storage shelves, I guess you could call them. In this bottom one, I have the things that I need to use all the time. Headlamp, buck knife, poop shovel, Leatherman, and a little Lucy light, a little solar powered light. So this bottom one is like functional stuff I use all the time. And my top one has my own little succulent garden. I have a very small little setup here, small circle sink and a very small faucet. I do not have any hot water. I have a very simple setup with just two blueies. This is my freshwater bluey. It goes through a little foot pump and the sink drains down here into my gray water bluey. Being without hot water is super easy for me. All right, let's move on to the kitchen. In my kitchen, I have a 50-liter Dometic fridge that keeps pretty much just enough food for 1 or 2 people. These drawers have provided me with a ton of storage space. In this top one, I have eating and cooking utensils, more cooking utensils, and that pan has old butter in it. Yeah, okay. Moving on. Snacks and spices. This bottom one holds all of my toiletry and hygiene stuff. This one is kind of like my junk drawer. I have extra electrical connections, protein, sandpaper, Akela's brush, Velcro, and of course a popcorn popper, and a smattering of other stuff. One of my favorite additions has been these mug hooks. So I like to hang a few mugs, and this has been a perfect place for me to store my axe while I travel. While I was doing my van build, I really made sure that I kept budget in mind. I obviously didn't have the money to pay somebody to do the van build, which I'm so grateful for after the fact. If you notice these countertops, they are just plywood. It's red oak plywood with iron-on veneer along the edges, kind of to hide that plywood look. Over my fridge, I have an extra slide-out countertop, which works really well for extra cooking space, as well as an extra little side table for when I'm sitting in my swivel seat. These overhead cabinets, it's all food stuff. Oil for cooking, my kettle for making coffee. I keep some of my propane up there as well. And in this one, more cooking stuff and dry goods and whatnot. You might be wondering what I cook with. I use a 2-burner Coleman stove and I use the small containers of propane to cook. In the beginning of the van build, I had considered using one of the large propane tanks, but I figured I could use that space for something else and I didn't really want to take the risk. Moving on to my workspace. This is one of my favorite cozy spaces in the van. Obviously, I keep my dirty laundry there, and let's talk about this. This is my screen for my heater. This is my remote for my inverter in case I want to turn this on and use AC power from my solar system. And this is where my hot air comes out from my heater that's stored under here. What's great about this space is that I can sit down, pull this table out, and use this as a workspace. This table is a scrap piece of live edge that I picked up from a local sawmill, and I crushed some turquoise and inlaid some of the large grooves just to give it a little bit more character and texture. Then I finished it with a polyurethane, and now it works really well as a little table. Under my cushion and in this bench is where I've installed my Chinese diesel heater. This was only about $130 and it's been working really well for me. This tank holds my diesel. The diesel runs through that little filter, through the pump, underneath my vehicle and back up into my actual heater. As it combusts and produces heat, it comes out of this ducting and right into my living area. And all of my electrical sits back there above my left back wheel well. This is Akela's den that she likes to hang out in. If she needs a kennel door on it, I do just keep a kennel door right under here in case I need to lock her in for safety purposes or for meeting new people. Creating a little den for Akela is super important because she loves to be created. She loves to have her own little dark space. So I definitely made that a priority. She loves it. Now she wants to play. Up in these two cabinets, I just store clothes. And that's all the space I need. Wrapping back around to the sink area, this I have a pull-out garbage here. That pull-out garbage is really important because Akela loves to get into garbage, so I had to make sure that it was up, out of the way, and non-accessible to her. Also, I designed this little drop-off here on my counter so that this could act as like a bedside table, which I love. These two little storage cubbies I made specifically for two things. This top one houses my Jackery, which if you don't know, this is a portable power device, and I store the solar panels for it right over here. And this bottom one is where I keep all of my cleaning supplies. So I have my vacuum, which I use on a daily basis, my little broom, soap, laundry detergent, plant food, all of the necessities. You might have noticed that in the back I have two rear windows. Those are the only windows that I installed. I love the privacy and it gives plenty of airflow when needed. Speaking of airflow, I did install two max air fans. I have one in the back and one in the front that is offset closer to my kitchen and where I cook. I wanted high quality fans, but I also didn't want to spend a ton of money. So I spent more money on the back fan because it can either draw air in or create an exhaust and draw air out. Where my front fan over my kitchen, it just pulls air out. I also designed that with Akela in mind so that I could get kind of a wicked airflow going in here, pulling air in and pulling air out. Also in the front, I have my lovely fruit basket. And you might be thinking, what a stupid place for a fruit basket. You're gonna hit your head every time. No, it's not stupid, but I do hit my head on it all the time. Something else I love about my van is this front section. So this whole front section under here is storage. When I got my van, this whole thing was open. So I decided to put a cupboard door on it and I filled it with cork. So when I start printing off the photos that I take, I can grab some push pins and use this as a cork board. And in here, I have just a bunch of storage. In the ceiling, I have 6 puck lights, as well as under cabinet lighting along the entirety of this wall. If you look back into when I wired my puck lights, I drew a diagram, and in that diagram, my plan was to have a 4th light right here. I drew it in my diagram, I have the lights for this, and I just never put it in. I never drilled the hole, I never wired it, nothing. So there's supposed to be a light right here. But there's not. As you can tell, I use the back of the seat kind of like a coat rack, but one of my favorite additions to this van was making this a swivel seat. If you have a van that's the size of mine, which is pretty small for the van life community, you want a swivel seat. It is an absolute game changer. It opens up the space more than what you probably think. All right, let's go on to the back. This stuff is all out here because I'm planning on going on a pretty long hike tomorrow down into this beautiful canyon that I'm parked over right now. This is what I call my garage. It's not pretty, but it's what we need to keep things organized. Over here I have a lot of our gear. So this is Akela's packs, her cooling vest, her life jacket, and then my big backpack for long trips. This is extra clothing and warmer clothing, while this is all of my extra gear. More packs, my climbing harness, hammock, camelback, camping stoves. I store Akela's food back here. This is extra diesel for my heater. Over here is extra gear, like my sleeping mat. I have a -40-degree sleeping bag tucked in behind that. And then self-care stuff. So my yoga mat, a heavy kettlebell, and a few different sets of dumbbells so that I can work out regularly. This is also where I store extra water and random odds and ends. As you can see, this table slides out this way as well, and I'm gonna show you why. I wanted this table to have multiple functions, so not only does it act as a work desk in the living area of my van, but it can also be pulled out the back completely. When I designed my van, I wanted to be able to use this space when the back doors are open. When I paneled these doors, I made sure that there was a slot in the bottom of each panel so that I could fit each end of my board in those slots and create a table here in the back. This has been so awesome. I've cooked back here multiple times, made my coffee in the morning, sat back here, worked back here. I've gotten a lot of use out of it. As for my electrical setup, I have a super simple, minimal electrical system. I installed 2 100-watt panels on the roof of my van. Those feed into a single 100 amp hour deep cycle gel battery. If I did not have my Jackery to power basically all of my personal things like my cell phone and computer, I would definitely need a second battery. And I think I probably will just add a second battery in the near future. And if I do add another one, I'm going to go with gel again just because they are so budget friendly. I have a 1000 watt inverter and that has been plenty for me. I got my setup from Renogy. It's the 200 watt premium kit, I believe. And one of the things I love most about it is that I can monitor my battery on my phone. It's at 100% right now. I love that. Because my system is so small, I do have to monitor it daily, especially if I'm not in the desert where it's sunny all day. This is what my Bluetooth app looks like, and it makes things really easy for me. I'd be pretty screwed actually without this. Yeah. So many of you have asked for continued price breakdowns, and I'm really sorry that I hadn't continued doing that throughout my build series. Towards the last third of my build, it was so hard for me to keep track of everything that I was buying, returning, messing up on, not using. I have an estimate though. So my van was listed at $17,000 and out the door ended up being closer to $20,000, which means for me it's a monthly payment of just under $300. As for the build itself, my build costs between $7,000 to $8,000. Keep in mind, I saved thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by doing the entire thing by myself. It ended up taking me about 7 months to complete the build, but that does include all of the time that I spent researching on the internet and YouTubing how-tos because I knew nothing. So if you are already experienced with tools, if you already have tools, if you've done something similar, it's not going to take you 7 months. Overall, I wanted my van build to feel like a cozy cabin. I wanted to use deep, rich colors but also make it feel roomy, so I really wanted to figure out a way to reflect who I am in this build, and I couldn't be cozier in my house. I love it. You may have noticed that my van does not have a few things that many other vans do, one of those being a toilet. Honestly, I never really wanted a toilet. I had considered getting a Nature's Head composting toilet, but if I'm being honest, I didn't want to do the work. For that type of composting toilet, you do need to empty it, you need to make sure that there's ventilation going outside, and I just would prefer to dig a hole in the ground and poop in it. My lifestyle allows me to be in the backcountry most of the time, and I'm very comfortable without a toilet in the backcountry. And when I'm not in the backcountry, gas stations are a great place to go to the bathroom. That's why I have my little shovel up there in that little shelf. I do not have a toilet, and I'm perfectly happy without one. I know that not everybody would be happy without a toilet, and that's definitely something to consider. Just know that it's doable. Secondly, I do not have a way to shower. There are many van builds that have built-in showers or even pull-out showers inside of them, and that's something that I never wanted. I do have a membership to Planet Fitness, so when I'm swinging through cities, I can get a good workout in and then get a really nice hot shower. But between those times, baby wipes work great. A bucket of hot water and soap work great. Filling a dromedary with a little spout with hot water works great. Jumping into a lake works great. I can't say that I'm a fan of that though. I don't like cold water, so that might be for other people, but not for me. But once again, that's all based on the individual. If you need a shower, you can make it happen. As far as safety goes, I have installed extra locks. I found out really quickly that this was very controversial, but I love my locks. I have 2 exterior locks, one on my sliding door and one locking my 2 back doors, and then I have 2 interior locks on the inside of my 2 front doors. Obviously, just for safety purposes, I'm not going to go through the safety routine that Akela and I have or how we lock up at night, but just know that these extra locks make me feel much better, and we have more than one way to escape if needed. Well, I think that's a good stopping point for the van tour. I don't want to overload you with information, but I think you have the things to either dream about your van life or start making a design really happen. Thank you for letting me share my home with you. It's something that I'm really, really proud of. I love it dearly, and it really has everything that I need to stay mostly comfortable and do all of the fun things with my life that I want to do. If you are interested in all of the little pieces of my van build, I do have a van build series up on my YouTube. I broke down almost every single project on this build. And lastly, Akela and I have a lot of really fun plans for these next few months, so make sure that you subscribe so you can see all the fun stuff that we're doing and probably the mistakes that we make along the way, because I think those are so valuable. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons. You guys are so generous and kind, and I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate the support more than you know. If you're interested in being a patron, I will post the link below. No pressure, just know it really helps get these videos out each week. Well, I'm getting kind of cold and kind of hungry, and I gotta get some good rest tonight before a long hike tomorrow, so I think I'll leave it at that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like, and Akela and I will see you next week. Somebody's walking by my van. You'd think I'd be used to this by now, but I'm not. Bless you. They can definitely hear me because I'm talking super loud.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun.